Here's a little mini lesson in the tensegrity of dorsiflexion and plantarflexion. First and foremost, you'll notice that all of these are opposite motions, from flexion to dorsiflexion to internal and external rotation. When we're moving from flexion to extension in anything, what we're trying to do is create tension for then the reciprocal movement. So if we think about just plantarflexion here, we obviously need ankle plantarflexion, which then creates toe extension at the bottom of the chart. Where the tensional integrity piece comes into play is by getting all of these synergists to start working. So that means the posterior tib needs to create a hind foot inversion. The peroneals then need to create a forefoot pronation. So let's start from plantarflexion. Obviously, we need ankle plantarflexion, which then creates toe extension. Simple enough. But if we're trying to get all these synergists to work, that's what creates the tensional integrity, where the posterior tib creates ankle inversion, where there's a little like scooping here. But then the peroneus longus and the other peroneals help create plantarflexion, and peroneus longus helps pronate that forefoot. And so you get this opposing twist in the middle of the foot that makes it such a rigid lever from which we push off. But then we need to come back down into dorsiflexion, which means we get obviously ankle dorsiflexion, and as soon as we start coming down, this is toe flexion. And then the opposing things happen. And then it's forefoot supination in relation to the hind foot that gets pronation. And that pronation comes from ankle eversion and tibial internal rotation. And if that forefoot stays still and the hind foot moves, that's why it's forefoot supination. And this is extremely important when we start talking about the springiness of the arches. If I wanted to raise this arch, all I need to do is extend the toe, and that will lock it in place. That's part of this mechanism that makes it such an efficient lever to push off from. To unlock the foot, we then need that toe flexion that softens the arch, where the arch compresses down like a spring, so that we can then get the reciprocal motion back up into plantarflexion. So maximizing these patterns isn't just about like some closed chain biomechanics. It is about creating tensional integrity with all the synergists of plantarflexion and then dorsiflexion, so that you can have this cyclic movement of dorsiflexion, plantarflexion, which you have in gait and running and jumping and pretty much any time you need to bend your ankle. As I talked about in my stories this week, other people are trying to teach this as their own, and it's more important to me that you understand why these patterns exist from me, rather than getting a misinterpretation from somebody else who has changed this chart with their own colors, but even kept the font. So let me know if you have questions in the comments.